Welcome back to The Dragon's Lair. My name is Wade, and this is my show Stranger Than Fiction, where we talk about the crazy, awesome things that I think are strange and awesome. Before I dive into this one, I just want to throw out a bit of a disclaimer because there are some people that don't like this mystery and they think that the person behind it is full of crap and try to discredit him. I'm not here to tell you that this is like 100% the gospel truth. The gospel is the truth. But my point is, I'm not here to argue and fight people. Okay, I'm just telling you a story about something that I think is interesting and cool, and it's a bit of a mystery. So come on a journey with me. Come on, let's go on a journey. Let's go on a journey. So it's time that we talk about one of my favorite things. I got a big list of favorite things, but this thing is what's known as Missing 411. Also known as the Can-Am Project. So that is CAN for Canada, AM for America. And another big reason why I show you the logo is because this will help you understand. If you're interested, this will help you understand where to buy the books and movies and whatnot. Because there are places that are reselling the books and stuff like that for way over what the original person, the author, is actually selling them for. So use this logo. It's Can-Am Project. It's missingcanamproject.com. Anyways, go to the official website. If you're interested, it'll save you a lot of money. That's what the logo looks like. All right. So this whole thing is put together by a gentleman named David Politis. And I believe him. I think he's genuine. I don't think he's a liar. I don't think he's full of crap. Now, having said that, okay, David Politis is a retired police officer. He has worked with SWAT teams and he was a detective. Okay, so he's got credentials. All right. Now, having said that, he is an author. So he wrote books and he would like to sell them. He worked hard. He deserves to sell them. He has made documentaries. There are several of them out there. You can see them on YouTube. I've watched multiple. I can't say all of them, but I've watched multiples of them multiple times just because I like listening to documentaries. And this is something I think is fascinating. Anyways, David Politis, I don't think you're a liar. I'm just going to say that. I'm also not here to fight trolls. So, like I said, retired police officer. I think he's a super credible person. He's wrote these books about people who go missing, and there's a mystery that seems to be combining these things. Okay, so it's a series of books and documentaries, and he even worked with his son to make some of the documentaries, which I think is really cool. Good job, Dave. I like that. Like I said, if you're interested in buying any of the books, there's like 15 books now because some are about hunters and some are about ones that take place near water and some are about kids and some are about ones that seem to have a UFO connection. There's just ones that focus on different things. One thing I want to throw out there before we go any further. So two things. One, go to David's website. He deserves the credit. He wrote the books, him and his team, right? He wrote the books. He's done the work. He's made the documentary. So support him. There are people out there that are scalping his intellectual property. Anyways, another thing I want to mention is he has made many appearances on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell and several of the other hosts of that show. And he mentions this all the time. He supports search and rescue folks. Later on, I'm going to bring something up that might make it sound like he doesn't support them. But every time in an interview, when he mentions this fact, which I'll mention later, he immediately says, I support search and rescue people. Don't get me wrong. He says, I'm not criticizing them or calling them out. What he's actually saying is they do a very good job, and whatever this thing is that's doing this seems to be working around them. Not necessarily outsmarting them. He doesn't say that. But it seems to like circumvent them, the searchers. And another thing is he does not have an answer. So he's not the guy writing a book saying the problem is giant killer ants, and now I'm going to sell you my giant killer ant spray. You know what I mean? Like, he's not presenting a problem and then a solution with a monetary value attached to it. He's just presenting, hey, I've investigated this and I found XYZ. XYZ seems to be connected to ABC because they're all in the same alphabet, right? And this is a big mystery, which I appreciate. I really like that. So I want to be honest. He does have a monetary incentive. At the same time, he's not presenting a solution and then benefiting from the solution. So I believe him. Okay. So what you need to understand is if you just read one of these books, you don't get the scope of what Missing 411 really is. And like I said, I've listened to him on Art Bell many times, Coast to Coast AM. I've watched the documentaries many times, listened to the documentaries many times. And one thing he'll say is, if you just read like 100 of these cases, you'll probably think, oh, it's mountain lions, or oh, they fell in a pit, or oh, whatever. It's when you look at 1,000 of these cases, which he has, and I have not. So I'm taking his word for that. Is when you begin to see like how miraculous they are. So where this whole thing kind of starts is, he was doing what he says, and I'm just telling you his story. What he says is he was doing some work in a national park, and he was doing some investigation about the park. And he was approached by some off-duty park staff members, national park staff members, who wanted to know if he was investigating missing persons in the park, because they have missing persons, and it is a big mystery, right? So he begins looking into it, and then he falls down the rabbit hole that we now live in, known as Missing 411. All right, so here's an important thing. I want to help you dial in the craziness of Missing 411. Here's the craziness, okay? If a person goes missing, but they have these list of things involved in their case, they are automatically excluded from Missing 411. None of the cases that have these things are a part of Missing 411. So, voluntary disappearance. So someone said, hey, I just want to go off the grid and live off the grid and disappear and eat berries and twigs and sell all my worldly possessions. Those people, not included. It happens, right? People who have mental health struggles, like depression or suicide, stuff like that. People who are suffering from, some sort of extreme bipolar or something like that, who might do something kind of unstable, like disappear into the woods. Those cases are excluded from what we're talking about. If there's crime involved, like if they were growing drugs out in the woods, or they were suspected of that, if they were, crossing country boundaries because they were smuggling things, that's excluded. If they were suspected of a homicide and they're running from the law, or just, whatever, if there's any crime, suspected crime or confirmed crime attached to the missing persons case, it's excluded. And the last one that I collected from listening and doing some research is predation. So if there is a sign that a bear got them, or a bobcat, or wolves, or boars, or whatever, if there's a sign that a predator, or even human predation, so somebody attacked them out in the woods or preyed upon them out in the woods, those cases are automatically excluded from Missing 411. So I'm helping you dial it in, right? Okay. So Dave will tell you, back at the beginning, when he first started working on this, he started taking the case files, and just like if you were investigating a bank robbery. So he uses a real life example from his time as a police officer detective. If you're trying to figure out, if you're investigating a bank robbery and you're trying to figure out if your bank robber has other bank robberies that they are attached to, you sort of develop like a modus operandi. Okay, so what that is he uses this specific example. I'm just using his example. If it's a skinny white dude who's in California and he wears a red bandana and he never presents a gun, but he leads people to believe that he has it, right there you have a description, you have like a means of threat, you have all these things that are details, right? That would, if 10 other bank robberies matched that, you could say they're probably all connected, or at least some of them might be connected, right? So he's investigating this in the beginning stages, and he begins putting cases in stacks on his living room floor. And then all of a sudden he's realizing that within 7 or 8 different criteria, all of these cases, or most of these cases, right, seem to fall into these different criteria, right? So here are the criteria. Missing 411 cases include these things. They're not limited to these things, but they include these things. And a lot of times there's a combination of these things. So dogs are brought on scene to help find the person, but the dogs can't find the person. Sometimes the dogs will search and then lose the scent. Sometimes the dogs will just go up the trail 15 feet and then turn around and come right back and sit down. And he tells you that trained tracking dogs don't do this. They love to track. They love to hunt. It is what they live for. It's why they wake up every day. And so for trained tracking dogs to go up the trail 15 feet, turn around and come back and lay down, there's a serious problem. Either there's absolutely no scent, or they feel intimidated by some sort of smell or the presence of a predator or something, right? Another one is people that are trackers are brought in, and they can just find no tracks. There's the person walked up to this point, and then there's just nothing around there. It really literally looks like they were just picked straight up in the air or dissolved. When they fly in planes and stuff like that, the planes use forward-looking infrared radar or FLIR, and absolutely nothing shows up on the FLIR. No animals, no hotspots that are maybes. So an absence of anything showing up on the FLIR seems to be something that, combines with these phenomenon. Boulder fields, particularly boulder fields that are rich in granite, seems to be something that we see over and over and over again. The missing travel in possible distances. So what I mean by that is the FBI has like a rule book, like a playbook, right, for finding missing persons. And they'll tell you, if you have a 5-year-old that is of this height and this weight, they are generally found within this distance, whatever the distance is in the book, from the point that they disappeared. And, 2 days later, it's a different distance, right? Because time is a part of the equation. But point is the playbooks that have been written that are based off of consistent data in search after search after search, when the people are found, because sometimes the people are found, they're not always found, but when the people are found, especially small children, they are far away from that playbook's recommendation. So there was actually an instance where a child was like miles away on the other side of a swamp, on the other side of barbed wire fences, and they had a very skilled, very physically fit survivalist. He goes by Survival Man, right? They tried to have him recreate traveling the distance that child traveled in the dark over that terrain, and that guy, that professional survivalist, had to call it and say, hey, we can't do this. Someone's going to trip and fall. Someone's going to die. And I don't know if I could do this. Like, he called it because there was a film crew with them. But he says, I don't think I could do this. So I'm not going to ask any of you to do it. Someone's going to get hurt. But yet a small child did it in the dark, right? Like, and the cases go on because sometimes it's up a mountain. And why would people go up when they could easily go down? There's lots of cases where the person could have easily, like they're a very skilled, very practiced hunter who's hunted for many, many years and they know the land, and they went up the mountain instead of down the mountain where they know that there are roads and towns and houses and things like that. Um, One thing that seems to happen a lot is bad weather happens. So like the person's been missing for a few hours, and then all of a sudden like 36 inches of snow drop within 24 hours, and it really hinders anyone being able to look. And the weather is different. Sometimes it's torrential rain, sometimes it's windstorms or tornadoes or snow or just whatever. But a lot of times there seems to be a weather condition that prevents searchers from being able to search in those crucial hours of the beginning of the disappearance. That seems to be a factor that happens quite a lot. Something that they find after investigation is there does seem to be some sort of condition. So sometimes the condition is obviously known, like an older gentleman hunter who has a bad leg, or some sort of, he's just old, so he's got a type of cancer. So sometimes they are very obvious things, like the bad leg, for example. But sometimes they're not obvious things. Like there seems to be an elevated level of people that go disappearing with autism. And we know that autism is a spectrum. So there are people who don't really present much symptoms of autism. There have been people who have disappeared, and it's type 2 diabetes is their condition. And there just seems to be people have conditions that seem to disappear. And a lot of times these conditions either prevent the person from being able to describe where they went. So their condition is they have some sort of limited speech. Or sometimes the condition is a degenerative thing, like early onset Alzheimer's or a degree of Alzheimer's, where they're confused, and so they are found, but because this person has a condition where they suffer from confusion, they just can't describe what happened to them. Or this also falls into this category, small children. So in that case, their condition is they don't really have a grasp of what they saw, so they can't communicate it very effectively. So there's, under the condition category, there's a variety of things there, but having a condition that prevents you from being able to accurately describe what happened to you is a thing. Points of separation is a term that David has coined, and it seems to be people at the back of groups, people in the front of groups, and where this kind of comes into play is that's when these people seem to just disappear. They are literally there, and then you turn your head and they're literally gone. And that seems to be a thing that happens time after time after time. Sometimes the victims are found later, but here's where this fits into one of the categories. But they're found in a place that has been searched dozens of times. And this is going back to where I said Mr. Politis supports search and rescue people. He sings their praises all day long. And every time he brings this one up, he stops and pauses to say that it's not the search and rescue people. Because a lot of those people are volunteers. And a lot of those people are highly trained, and they care, and they are good at what they do. And he's very clear about that. So I want to be very clear about that. If you are on search and rescue, thank you for what you do. But what he's saying is there's a specific case where this guy went missing, and every day the searchers came in on this same road. They traveled this same road on ATVs and horseback and on foot every day. And through the course of that search, there was hundreds of people that went up and down that road. And the search went on for like a week. Okay, I'm not giving you 1,000% true specifics. I'm giving you very close to what happened in this story. And then, like, the search went on for like a week, let's say. On day 7, the guy was found in the middle of that road that everyone had been traveling up and down, with a tree knocked over on top of the guy. Think about that. They would have seen that guy. It's in the middle of the road. It's very obvious. And that one is a lot like somebody left that guy there, or something left that guy there. Here, I'm done with this. You were looking for it anyways, right? Like, discarded him. which is just so weird. But that's a thing that seems to happen time and time again when people are found. A lot of times this happens near water, swamps, bogs, lakes. I live in Michigan, and here in Michigan we have something known as the Michigan Triangle. It's kind of a thing. So, missing clothes or items. So what I'm talking about that is, so like if you're a hunter and, out of all the stuff that you've got, like over years, your knit wool cap is going to get torn apart by animals who turn it into nests. Or if an animal eats you, he's going to tear your clothes, and your clothes are going to start to get, break down and things like that. They're going to rot, okay? But there are things like hunting knives and rifles and pistols and stuff like that that would not break down, okay? Like a rifle out in the woods is just going to be a rifle for a very long time, right? And my point is, those things are just not found. Many times, they're just not found. Things that are very obvious, like there was a case of a small boy who went missing. He had these camouflage boots that were too large for him, and his parents talk about every time he went clopping around in these boots, they would fall off, and he would get frustrated sometimes, and he would sit down and fling them off. If you picked him up, they would just fall off. The family had a hard time keeping these boots on this little boy. And when he went missing, they fully expected to find his boots. They have never found the boots. Now, granted, they are small, because this was a small child. But what I'm saying is, those rubber boots would have lasted a very long time. Those rubber boots would have got kicked off if an animal would have grabbed the kid, if a human would have picked the kid up, if the kid was just clopping around, they would have fell off, or he would have sat down and kicked him off. There's 1,000 reasons why those boots would have been discarded, and they've never been found. And then one of the last categories is just 100% absolute nothing. Like no tracks, no items found. The person is literally just gone. And those are the things that are included in the missing 411 criteria. So I gave you the excluded criteria. I gave you the included criteria. Nothing else is included. And still, there are thousands of cases that fit this. Another thing that David found out is, in putting these in groups, he found out that there are these clusters. Now, he'll tell you for the purposes of his missing Cam-Man project, a cluster is 3 disappearances or more. I personally feel like that's pretty small, but I'm just telling you what he has put together. And so I'm going to show you the map. This is the map of the clusters that he has put together so far. And the largest cluster in the world of missing people is in Yosemite National Park, which is in eastern California. I didn't know that. I assumed it was in Wyoming. I was an ignorant American. It's in eastern California, and you can see it right over there. That is the cluster right there. There's all sorts of clusters up and down the West Coast near all that water. Another interesting story is, I can't pronounce it very well. The Ogallala Aquifer runs, so that's underground water, runs north to south, straight up and down through the middle of the country. See that blank spot in the middle of the U.S. where there are no missing people that David Paulides has identified that fit these criteria? Not that there's no missing people, but that don't fit this criteria that David Paulides has identified. And it's just really interesting and weird that there's no missing people that fit the missing 411 in that stripe down the center of the country. Another weird story is, I have seen maps overlaid with the largest cave structures, natural cave structures in America, and it matches the clusters. Like, see how one kind of starts like down in the south in Georgia and goes like up the East Coast? There's all sorts of caves through there. See where in the west, right where the first 2 clusters form, there's caves all throughout there. Like, that is crazy. And I don't believe in coincidences like that. I just don't believe in that. That's crazy. Um, and listening to Dave talk, it does seem that there is some sort of larger conspiracy. Now, when I say larger conspiracy, don't take that too far. What I mean by that is the National Park System seems to be very hesitant to give him information. And he's been back and forth with them. They've been in court. He's Freedom of Information acted them, and they've blocked him. They're very hesitant to give him information. Personally, I think that's because at some level, they know that there's something going on. Also, search and rescue people. So he'll go to conventions, like I go to Comic-Con, he goes to like Search and Rescue Comic-Con, where those people get together and they, talk about best practices and gear and tell stories and, trade all that information and knowledge. And he'll do a panel about this. And what he says is he'll have people lined up out the door to talk to him. And there's dog handlers, there's searchers in there, there's all sorts of people. And they're like, yeah, we've seen this. Not that they see it every moment of every day in every missing search that they go on fits this criteria. We're not saying that. But you get 300 search and rescue people in a room, and you have enough people out there that they all have stories about, yeah, 2 years ago I saw that one. And yeah, 3 years ago, remember this one. Like they know is what David Paulides is saying. And that also goes into police officers who are involved in search and rescue and like National Guard people and stuff like that who get brought in to search and rescue. Another thing that I've noticed about the quote-unquote greater conspiracy, I know that I've said those words. I'm not saying it's necessarily like a sinister, intentional conspiracy, but I think it's like a passive, all sorts of situations sort of converge in this one place. And this is what I'm talking about with my next point. He's talked to a lot of coroners, and a lot of coroners will say, yeah, the person died in the woods and I have no cause of death, so I feel like I should just write exposure. Even though they died in the summertime in July and it was 70 all night. And I'm not a coroner. I don't know enough about what the definition of dying by exposure means, but they definitely didn't freeze to death. So all I'm saying there is he has seen and spoken to enough coroners and read enough reports where they feel that they couldn't put cause unknown because that reflects poorly on them. And in some instances, he's talked about how the coroners feel pressured to put a cause of death. And in some instances, he's talked about where they have been pressured to list a cause of death that does not fit, like drowning when the person wasn't found in water and didn't have water in their lungs. But that's a bunch of different examples. But all I'm saying is between the parks being hesitant, coroners feeling like that they need to put a cause of death down just because they need to put one down, and search and rescue people who are experienced and competent all kind of seem to know what's going on. It feels like there is something going on. And I know I've used the words the greater conspiracy, but I don't think there is a sinister conspiracy that is organized and led by any particular thing or group. All I'm saying is I think all of these things sort of converge on this mystery, and because of them, they culminate into the circumstances of this mystery. Anyways, this is a really cool mystery for me. I really enjoy it. I watch those documentaries all the time. I listen to them while I'm at work just because I like listening to documentaries. I listen to the Art Bell recordings that are on YouTube. I think it's really cool. David, I think you're a cool guy. Thank you for your work. I sincerely hope that everyone buys their books from you and not from the scalpers who are way overcharging for your intellectual property. Keep it coming, man. I'm not going to buy any of your books because I only buy books about Christ and God and Jesus. But I will watch your documentaries all day long, dude. Anyways, I really enjoyed sharing this mystery with you guys. And we here at The Dragon's Lair want to say thank you for spending your time with us at the Dragon's Lair.